Hey guys, welcome back. I am Jason Salyer, and let's talk a minute about primitive skills and why you should learn them. A lot of people in the preparedness community may look down upon or feel like primitive skills are irrelevant, not useful anymore, because why learn how to do a bow drill friction fire when I can just carry a lighter in my pocket? And I totally understand that. If you're not carrying a lighter in your pocket when you go into a wild place, you're wrong. It's a really dumb thing to do, unless you're just out there literally trying to test yourself and test your skills. But learning the primitive skills is something that I can fall back on. If worst case scenario, I lose all my gear, I'm dropped off in the middle of nowhere with nothing, I know that I can still make it, at least for the short term. Having the primitive skills gives me a tremendous amount of confidence in a wild place, because I know no matter what, I can make the fire happen. I can find myself a cutting tool, like we're going to talk about here in just a second. None of that stuff is, packing for an adventure is not really that big a deal anymore. I don't have to really sit down and analyze every single tiny thing that I put into my pack and make sure I've got everything and don't forget all of the stuff on my checklist. None of that matters to me as much anymore. When I prepare for an adventure, a trip, a weekend getaway, whatever it is, I just throw some stuff in a pack and I head off. If I forgot something, it's not that big a deal. I can make it work without. But anyway, in this area, in these fast-flowing, clear streams in Appalachia, we've got a couple different useful rocks for the most part that I've found useful, at least. Flint napping, I don't think it's that important to be an expert flint napper. If that's your thing, that's super cool. I think it's a really, really cool skill. I've just never really invested that much time into it, and I've never really found it to be that necessary. But that's just me. I can bust a rock like this. This is a piece of quartz. I can bust a piece of quartz like this and get myself a sharp cutting edge that will do all of the things a knife will do. Obviously not nearly as efficiently as a steel blade knife, but it will get the job done. So what I look for is a piece of quartz like this that's relatively clear and not so grainy looking. And what I mean by that is this one's kind of smooth and doesn't have a lot of fissures like already in it, like this. This one is not gonna, this is quartz, but this is gonna bust into a bunch of tiny little shards, and it's not gonna be as useful. So I wanna find something a little bit more like this. And all I really need to do is smash the thing. I can either strike it onto another rock like this, which is probably what I'll do in this situation, or I can use it like an anvil. I can put it on a big rock like that, and I can take another rock and smash into it. And when I break it, it's gonna give me some useful pieces most likely. And if it doesn't, I'll just hit it again. So watch your eyeballs when you do this, but I'm just gonna strike it firmly against another rock, and bam. What that provided me is a couple of tools off of that one strike, and I could refine these further if I want to, but that is a sharp edge. That will cut you. The quartz in our area is not very durable. I mean, it's really sharp. I could gut a fish with that, no problem. I mean, that will cut my thumb if I rake it across there for sure. But it's kind of flaky and not real durable, so you got to be careful with it. You can't, carve a spoon with this very effectively. That's not really going to be a thing, but you can score through some stuff, and then we'll talk about that more here in a minute. But there's a really good tool. That's basically a hand axe right there, ready to rock. I can use that sharp edge on my stone, and I can cut into anything that I need to. I could, butcher animals with these stones. If you strike down on this edge right here, sometimes it'll give you really nice thin flakes. Sometimes. Like that. So that is a really sharp, really thin flake. And if I needed to butcher an animal, gut a fish, something like that, not that you can't just do that with your bare hands, but if I needed something really fine, sharp cutting edge, wanted to cut a piece of cordage or something, this would definitely do it. That is really sharp. So this same spot in the creek, I found another useful rock. I do not know the name of this stone, and I'm really bad with names on things. I know the uses of stuff. I can identify it by sight, by visual reference, but I almost never remember the names of things. I'm really bad at it. It's something I need to work on. But this stone right here, I know for a fact, works really good as a sharpening stone. And let's say I've got my cutting tool, like this machete. My favorite machete, by the way. It's made by a company called Galavan. I don't think you can find these anymore, unfortunately. Maybe there's somewhere out there floating in the interwebs you might be able to find one, but this is by far my favorite machete. But if it needs to be sharpened up a little bit because I've neglected it like it has, you can see the edge on this one's a little bit rusty. I've got a couple of nicks and dings in the steel because I've hit something hard like a rock or something when I'm cutting low to the ground. But I can use my whetstone that I found out of the creek as is, and I can sharpen up my machete with just this rock, and it works really well. This stone is relatively flat, and I just use circular motions to sharpen up that edge, and I can bring this thing back to a really keen edge in just a few minutes. And just like a store-bought whetstone, you get kind of this slurry action going on your stone. And if it gets a little dry, you dip it back in the water, and it'll bring it back. So this is kind of that blend of primitive skills and new technology, right? I mean, this steel is, you know, in the course of human history, it's a fairly new technology, right? But I can use this primitive stone that I found. Didn't even have to do any work to it. And it works really good to bring my edge back. So with just a little bit of time and a rock that I found in the creek, I've brought my machete back to a really nice keen edge. So anytime you're working with primitive skills, primitive technology of any kind, it's going to be slow, and you're going to have to be patient. It's not going to be as fast as pulling out your knife and cutting through this sapling, right? It's going to be significantly slower, going to take a little bit more work, but if you have the patience and you just slow it down a little bit, it can get the job done. So like if I wanted to cut through this sapling right here, for whatever reasons, if I wanted to cut myself a cane pole to go fishing or something, and all I had was this sharp rock, basically what I would do is I would score my way around it. I would score a circle all the way around it with my little hand axe here. And obviously I could just break this sapling off, but if I wanted a clean edge, a clean cut of some sort, if I wanted to make myself a bow drill kit, hand drill kit, something like that, it could all be done with a sharp rock like this. And you saw I didn't have to do any fine napping skill. I didn't have any of that. I just broke a friggin' rock in the creek. So I'd score all the way around it like that. And then you snap it off, and it's a really, really, well, significantly cleaner cut than just breaking the thing with your hands. And if I wanted to clean it up, I might grab one of the other tools that I made. The sharper pieces, perhaps. And like I said, quartz is not good. The Native Americans in this area traded for much better stone than what they have locally. I mean, there are quartz arrowheads out there, but they're, you know, very inferior to like the chert or obsidian kind of stuff that you'd find out west. Anyway, clean that up just a little bit. Now I've got a cleaner edge. I can make notches in stone and the wood, all kinds of stuff with just a rock like that. And let's say I wanted to do a flint and steel type fire. Let's say I lost my lighter's out of fluid, whatever, doesn't work, and I need to revert back to a more primitive technology. As long as I've got some high carbon steel like this machete and a sharp rock, the key is it has to be a sharp rock, because what you're really doing is you are cutting a small sliver of steel off of the back of your blade to make that spark. See any sparks coming off of there? So you can see the sparks coming off of there, and if I had some charred cloth of some materials or charred material, punk wood or whatever, I could possibly make myself a fire. So again, just a blend of modern technology with some primitive skills, some basic breaking rocks in the creek that could get you by and just, again, give you more confidence in the wild. And I didn't just take my shoes off to because I was in the wet creek and I didn't want to get my boots wet. I'm grounding. I'm getting in touch with nature. I'm getting in touch with my hippie self. A sharp rock like this does a good job of processing tinders off of the cedar tree, for example, or really any other fibrous kind of bark. It does a really good job of scraping that off of there. And then within just 30 seconds to a minute, I'll probably have a bird nest big enough to get the job done. See, it's really good dry tinder right there with just a rock out of the creek. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I hope you're encouraged to at least experiment a little bit with some primitive skills, because if for nothing else, it gives you a ton of confidence in a wild place. See ya.